Welcome to Season 3 of the Knack for Business podcast. Over 300 episodes strong, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit with fresh insights, networking gems, and creative strategies that elevate your game. Are you ready to discover what your Knack for Business truly is? Your hosts are Bernie Franz Grota from Creative Insight and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc.
Today's topic is broken trust, broken communities, why cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. And that's what our guest is all about, Raj Thukral from SecureToolkit. Raj is an accomplished IT security expert and a visionary founder of SecureToolkit. With over a decade of experience building robust security programs and empowering businesses to strengthen their defenses, Raj has become a trusted leader in cybersecurity. His mission is to bridge the gap for small and medium-sized businesses, providing accessible tools and strategies to safeguard their operations in an increasingly digital world. Through his expertise, Raj simplifies the complexities of cybersecurity, making it approachable and actionable for organizations of all sizes. Raj, welcome, and do you have a favorite quote or saying, sir?
Thank you. My favorite quote around security is, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And if you're not prepared for it, cybersecurity is going to be a major or could be a major issue when an incident happens.
That almost sounds like the love of the hard drive. It's not if, it's when the hard drive will fail too. Same concept.
Absolutely. It's the same concept. And just like you should have backups, you should have a plan for when there is a cybersecurity incident.
So why is this so critical for small and medium businesses today? Because I don't think most businesses perceive themselves as the primary target. They don't think a foreign national entity is going to come hunting for them because they don't hold the nuclear launch codes, or they don't hold that IP information. That's what is the secret recipe to Coca-Cola, that is. Why should they care?
Well, businesses still hold real money, and losing real money is a real problem. And for most cyber attackers out there, they're not looking for the big payout. They are looking for whatever they can get. And if they can get some money from you as a small business, knowing your resources are scarce and you probably haven't focused on cybersecurity, and therefore you might be an easier target, they will come after you. 60% of small businesses have had a cyber incident in the last 2 years, and about half of them go out of business within 6 to 9 months after the cybersecurity incident. So that's a very telling statistic on why small businesses should care.
Why do they drive down? Like, why does a business collapse in that time period after? Is it a financial ramification? Is it information? What, or a mix of things?
It's a mix of things. The financial ramification can be huge. It's also the fact that they suffer a reputational impact, and that can be, depending on the line of business they are, that can be the fatal blow. It's very hard to recover from a reputational incident, much more than a financial impact. Not that the financial impact is not real.
What are the common threats, Raj?
Oh, what are the common threats? And there is such a wide variety of them. But the most common one that I have seen, and the one that most businesses seem to ignore, is the human factor. You can put in all the technology in the world, but if you go out and click on the wrong link or you give away information, that's how they get you. So it's the most common form of attack. It's also, unfortunately, the one that most businesses fall prey to.
Now, I have an African general that's offering to send me money. Should I trust that?
No, that is an easy one to say no to. But if you look at how these scams have evolved, they are getting much more difficult. To get a yes or no answer to you can be very difficult because these attacks look so real now. They feel so real. They come from likely what looks like a trusted source. They may come from your friend or your business partner or your colleague, your employee or your boss, and they look like they are real and a genuine request. And therefore, it becomes very hard to tell you, like right off the bat, whether it's real or not. So there's some strategies we can get into if you want to go that route, where you can look at what you're getting in your email and what's being requested and see if it sets off some red flags. and therefore requires further investigation before you click on a link or before you give them information or before you put in your login and password. So things like urgency, things like misspellings, things like checking the email address carefully, or if you're really in doubt, call the person up and confirm whether they want you to go get the file from that link or go transfer some money out or what it is. And I think that sort of leads to one of the biggest things I tell small businesses is to train your people on how to recognize these types of scams, because that is a huge way to prevent cybersecurity incidents, whether it's in the workplace or for people at home when they're dealing with their own information. You might have seen the text, your parcel's been delayed, CRA has given you a refund, or you need to log in now, there's an arrest warrant out for you. So how do you recognize those, and how do you prevent people from clicking on those or giving away their information or losing money? And I think that's where education plays a big role, and the education works both ways for people in your organization as well as in their personal lives. So there's a huge motivation there for people to understand and follow through with these security tips.
It almost sounds like you have to have a solid base of information, sure information, or a trusted gold information. In other words, I know Wayne, I know his cell phone number, right? And so if Wayne says, Bernie, ship me over $5 million to this account. It just happens to be somewhere in the Aruba Islands, whatever. First off, Wayne, we don't normally ship money around. If I had 5 million, I'd probably be in the islands. So what up? But that said, that means I already know Wayne. I have a context around Wayne, and this is an oddball circumstance. Is it always going to be a unique thing like the bank inspector? Because that's making the news lately. Or the prince from Africa. I have all this money, but the only way for me to do it is bounce some money around, which usually means you have to action or step. You do an action step. But there are other threats that come along too. Some of them are like, I've received ones going, here's your purchase order for a project. I'm like, I didn't apply it to an RFP. And so I reach out to the person going on another platform, not email. In this case, I used LinkedIn, right? I used another route. And nope, that's not me. I've been hacked. Yeah, drag that file over into the spam. So it almost seems like there are two kinds of threats. One that wants you to do something that, play along, and the other one wants you to do something, but it opens Pandora's box. What do you do next? You see something and you go, play with me, or the other one is open the box.
Never open the box. Never open the box. I think we know that one. I think it gets a little bit more insidious in that the example you gave where Wayne says, wire me $5 million is obviously outrageous. But if he was on a vacation and you got an email from him saying, hey, as I'm in Jamaica and I just lost my wallet and my cards are all in there, can you wire me $2,000 so I can at least get some local transportation and get my ID back and try to figure out how I get a ticket back to Canada? That makes it so believable. And the way social engineers and criminals look at it is to say, we know Wayne and Bernie are good friends. From Wayne's Facebook, I know he's sitting in Jamaica. I know he's going to have limited connectivity. I know Bernie knows that. If I write him an email like this, he will probably respond. So you really got to look at it and say, there's not a whole lot that's business as usual anymore. Don't trust anything. One of the scams I investigated went as far as to sit on an accountant's email for 6 months till they saw an order come through, and then asked the company to send an advance for the order, except they sent in the wrong banking information. So the criminals got the money, and that was to the tune of $60,000. But the same thing happens with lawyers where, because these guys are so patient, they can sit on a lawyer's email for months, watch a real estate deal come through, and then send an email pretending to be the lawyer to say, okay, everything's set up, send your money into this bank account and we will close the deal. And of course, that bank account does not belong to the lawyer and it's not an escrow account. It goes straight to the criminals. So there is no business as usual. If there is money transfer happening, if there is a loss of information, if you're putting in your banking password, if you're putting in email passwords, always double check that you've got the right site, you've got the right person, that you are actually required to do that action, and you have confirmed it through a second channel, whether it's phone or instant message or another means of communication you might have.
Is it just by email or is it by website? So one sounds like someone's bouncing a ball at you, right? Here's your text message, here's your email. And it's like going fishing or hunting, right? They're putting out the lure and here you go, do. And you got to learn, don't touch it. For example, I've heard people with QR codes, they can lead you down suspicious sites. I've told people, I said, listen, when you pick up a piece of food off the street and you eat it, no, because you don't know what the story is behind it.
Yeah.
But how do you not end up falling prey? So you hit a website and all of a sudden they've overlaid it with their own URLs. They've managed to get you to go to the wrong site, hijack the website. How do you prevent that? That's an unfortunate moment happening.
So you can't prevent those things from happening if there are websites that are not in your control, right? So if somebody takes over somebody else's website, you have no control. What you do have control over is, one, what type of websites you visit. So obviously you're not opening every link or going to every website recommended. You are making sure that it's a reputable site or a reputable company. If you're in doubt, you can always go to a search engine and do a little bit of research to make sure that the company is legitimate before you click on their link. You can also make sure that you are protected as much as possible by keeping your computer up to date, making sure it's patched, and protecting your accounts as well. So if you do inadvertently give out your password, what's protecting you, right? And that's why a lot of these sensitive sites or logins have what's called multi-factor authentication. So a password alone isn't enough to get you into the site. So for my email, for instance, I have something called Google Authenticator, which will generate a code. And unless you know the code, even if you have the username password, you can't get it. There are better means than that, but you might get an SMS message. You might also use something called SecureToolkit, which is way more secure. But in any case, the idea is that you try to protect yourself as much as possible. So if you do happen to visit a site, your malware blocker will catch it, your antivirus will catch it. And if you do happen to leak your password, your second factor will prevent somebody from misusing your account. None of these methods are perfect, by the way. They all have their pros and cons. Obviously, the pro is higher security, but not at the cost of making it a little less easy to use. So you're giving up a little bit of ease of use for more security, and it's worthwhile. One of my favorite things to say in security is you don't have to be like the Fort Knox of security, right? Imagine you're being chased by a bear. How fast you have to be? You don't have to be faster than the bear. You have to be faster than your friend who's running with you.
Good luck, Wayne.
I'm Pooched. I have a strange question. What killed the dongle? 5 years ago and a little before, you were always supposed to have this dongle that was going to be your second level security, and it was all about hardware. It was all about this piece of plastic. No one talks about that anymore.
That's not entirely true. I do have something called a YubiKey, and I have multiple of those, and that's a dongle. I can't see myself, so hopefully you can see that. Those are still around, and they are actually a lot more secure than passwords. In fact, one day, my expectation is that hardware keys like this will replace passwords, and I'm waiting for the day. It's like your house key, right? You can say that if you lose it, there's nothing stopping someone from picking it up and opening the lock to your door, but you take care of it. And that's the same thing with this physical key. It will unlock websites for me, and I make sure it's always with me on my keychain. And I won't leave my car keys out, and I won't leave my house keys out. I don't leave my security key out. So hardware dongles are very much in. They're still there. A lot of phone manufacturers have actually taken the same technology that's in these hardware dongles and put them on the phones. So when you're using your smartphone to access a site, you can still use a security key that is very much tied to your phone. And unless you're logged into your phone and you have it unlocked, that key can't be used. And that key obviously can't leave the phone. It is secure. It's still a hardware dongle. It just happens to live on your phone or on your PC.
I remember using a dongle back in the day in my previous career, and it was the bank's sent it. It was a commercial account. And I guarantee you that was so much fun. I enjoyed myself so much. If you haven't used it for a while, then everything is like, it becomes a test, right? You'll have to call the 1-800 number to get yourself back in. And I think that's, although it's painful for the end user, it just provides that layer of security. Do you find that things will get tweaked with AI rolling into the picture? In other words, apparently AI is everywhere. If you have, let's say, depending what device you have that has the ears on or your cell phone, it'll listen to you. It'll know that you're there. Even the caption, when you click the box, it's watching what's happening on your computer. Hi, yeah, that's Wayne. That's Bertie over there. Yeah, we're good. Do you find that's going to be the next layer plus something you have, and I guess context, location? Do you find that's going to be the evolution coming into play?
It's already there. So when you click on that captcha, there's no longer, in a lot of those captchas, there's no longer the funny text or the pictures to click on or anything. What that captcha is doing is looking at your behavior before you click the button. So how you move your mouse, where you move it, where it moves, and how quickly it moves and clicks that captcha button is all part of what they call behavior analysis. And that can tell the algorithm behind the scenes whether you are human or you're not human. And obviously, I'm sure at some point machines will catch up and they will do the same thing. But that's already there. In terms of AI, it's a technology like anything else, and it's a double-edged sword. So on the one hand, AI is very good at pattern recognition. So it can recognize anomalies. It can pick up when something unusual is happening, which is how security incidents start, and it can prevent that. But on the other hand, it is also very good at creating loopholes and exploits that are scripts that can take advantage of holes in your security. So it's a cat and mouse game, right? You're going to be playing it for a long time.
Something that I find happens is that I can't remember my own passwords. So they're incredibly secure. They're even secure for me.
Yeah.
Our password software, separate software going to fix that? Are we going to go to hardware? How do we protect us from passwords we can't remember?
I can't remember a single of my passwords. I cannot remember any one of them for the simple reason that I put them in a password manager. And the only password I have to remember is the master password for that. There are two things that I would recommend on passwords. One, if you can move away from passwords, of course, it's good. On phones now, it's biometrics, or even on computers, or it's Face ID, and those things are much better. The way they are stored, the way they are processed is all local on your phone. That information is not being sent out, so there's no collection of biometrics, if you will. And any information that's on your computer or on your phone cannot be exported out. The other thing I would say is if you are using passwords, switch to passphrases. And what that means is use a long password made up of words. And if you want to look up something fun on Google, go look up correct horse battery staple. And it's a weird word. It's a weird phrase, but you will not forget it. Correct horse battery staple, and look that up. And that's the whole explanation behind passphrases. It's a set of words that you won't forget, and it's simple to type out. It's simple for you to use, but it's very hard for computers to guess. Whereas the old guidance where they said use special characters or use substitutions, so 0 for O and E for 3 and those kinds of things, they're very difficult for humans to remember, but conversely, actually very easy for machines to guess because those are so common. So the longer your password, the more protected you are. It doesn't matter whether you're using special characters or whether you're using numbers. As long as it's a long password, I suggest 20 characters, 25 characters, 30 characters. The longer it is, the better it is. And the easier it is for you to remember, the more chances are you will actually remember it and use it. But if it's that many characters, it's very likely very hard for a computer to guess.
The jumping fox over the moon. It sounds like the little thing you would write out, the sample, the Word document, how to type.
Yeah, the quick brown fox will be the next sort of commonly used password.
Yeah, I was going to say, this all takes on a view that if you're the solopreneur, you're it. It's up to you. You're the first and last line of defense. But if you have a crew working with you, how do you instill to them going, listen, this is the normal chatter. This is abnormal. Stop. Don't click and open, or you see it, like, do you sandbox it? Can you sandbox it without it opening Pandora's box, but it's in a secure space? And if it opens up and goes, yuck, it doesn't go anywhere. Are these, how do you set that up? How do you get a business to set itself up and then maintain it so that it's, as they live and breathe, this becomes normal for them, and even on in their private lives becomes normal for them, to prevent them from being scammed?
I think the biggest thing we can do right now is to educate ourselves on security. It's a huge field, but there are some very simple, basic things that everybody can do, and that's where we have to start. It is a big enough threat now that we cannot ignore it. Real people are losing real money, and it's unfortunately way more common than we think, because a lot of these crimes don't get reported. People swallow the loss. There's pride involved. There's reputation involved. So for a small business owner, the biggest problem is they don't have the resources, and they don't have the time, and they don't have the energy to look at yet one more thing. But I would say this is critical enough that you should start. And that sort of leads me to why I set up SecureLink and SecureToolkit in the first place, is to help small businesses improve their security, right? To be able to do real stuff that actually impacts their cybersecurity posture in a positive way, without having to hire a consultant, without having to spend a lot of money, without having expertise in-house. Because to me, this is a problem that needs to be solved. And
Is there a cheat sheet that you send out where we can review this monthly or whatever with our employees? Or hiring you is always obviously the best. That's why you're here, is to get known. But is there a cheat sheet we can go through?
I don't have a cheat sheet, but I do have software that will guide you through the basic steps, and that's the service I sell. So if you sign up to the software, it's going to tell you what you need to do. It's going to tell you how often you need to do, and it's going to, over time, help you improve your security all the way. If you wanted to get a third-party audit and a compliance certificate, you could do that as well. So it'll help build your security over time.
That's interesting. A compliance audit. Who requires that?
Any company you're doing business with should require that. The big ones already do. The medium ones do their own assessment. The small ones are getting there. So in other words, if I'm supplying you a security service, it's up to you to do your due diligence to make sure I'm secure. We all rely on Zoom and Google and Microsoft. How do we know they're secure? They have a whole set of documents that they can show you, which shows that a third party has come in and audited them, and those are their compliance documents.
From the having listened to my spouse engage the province for something that was being done for a healthcare facility, they have something called TRAs, threat risk assessments. Then I heard the price tag, and my jaw dropped and put the jaw back up. Is that much the same thing, that you're doing a TRA, that you are, whatever your process is that's handling sensitive data, is tight and secure? Is that part of it? Is that like being ISO compliant? Is that kind of all bundled in that package?
It is bundled in. You can do that as well. But like you said, that is an expensive and slow process to do. For small businesses, I would recommend at least doing the basic, what I call security hygiene steps. So making sure your devices are patched, making sure you have anti-malware, antivirus, making sure you block commonly misused services or ports, make sure you have a firewall, make sure. So we walk you through that first before we get to, okay, now let's look at what's specific to your business that requires a real threat risk assessment that may be above and beyond the basics, right? So that's the level at which that comes in for a small business.
So if I have a Windows XP or 7 operating system, am I at risk?
Depends on what you do with it. If you never connected to anything, never installed software, never put in I would say floppy disk because you're saying XP, but never like USB, nothing that touches the external world, you are probably okay. But if you're browsing the net or going online with any of that, like, you are in trouble.
Something that has me intrigued are the people that are trying to fake shop. It usually comes from a lawsuit. when the person didn't get any information except my name and that I worked for XYZ, when do you tell them, go ahead, sue me? We're not settling. You didn't get any money, any information. Stop it. Or am I talking to the wrong guy?
And that's the thing, right? You can scam both ways. I get a lot of those where we've got all your email and we've got all your data and your browsing history and all of those. For me, Bitcoin, or I'm going to send it off to all your contacts kind of thing, right? That is entirely too common and it is entirely unbelievable. Right? So when you do have a real data extortion or a real ransomware or double ransomware attack, they will give you enough evidence to prove that they have your data, right? So they will give you snippets of real data. They will give you information more than just your email address or your name. So you will know when it's real. In most cases, it's not real. If you look at email, you don't even see your name and your email address in the two. The person has sent it to 100 or 1,000 people. It's not targeted at you. He sees cast a wide net, and somebody who responds is his target, and those who ignore it, he just moves on.
Wow. The true phishing.
Yeah.
So IoT devices, and that can range from anything from a sensor to camera. Is that another opening to get into your system and leverage it? Can you, other than seeing the, say, a webcam, right, other than seeing what's on the webcam, is that another way to break into your household or business network?
It is. So if you go on Google and search for webcams, you will find a lot of feeds from people's businesses and homes that are unencrypted. Those web cameras are directly on the internet. The offensive thing you could do is just watch the cameras. But now that the camera exists and it's on this IP address, and here's the make and model, you could also probably break into that camera, because a lot of times IoT devices are not updated. Like, you can patch your computer and you will patch your computer and you will apply updates on your phone. But when was the last time you went to your security camera and checked if its firmware was up to date? Almost never. So what that means is that those devices generally end up getting security vulnerabilities that stay on them unpatched for forever. In a lot of instances, the manufacturer may not even provide a security patch for that device because that device just isn't capable of being patched in the field. So you're stuck with the security vulnerability, and the only way to remove it is to get a new camera or put it behind the firewall so it's not accessible over the internet. But when you do break into something like that, or when a criminal does break into something like that, he now is what we call within your network. And now any device on your network becomes the next target for that person, for that hacker. So once he's in your network, he can traverse your network, hop from device to device, depending on what you have in your network. Any device that is unpatched or not up to date or vulnerable or has services open, he can get into that. So yes, those devices that are open to the internet do create a security issue, a big one. Usually it's cameras, sometimes it can be printers, other IoT devices. Everything that's connected to the internet is a target.
So if it's wireless, that means it's a vulnerability. And there is an old phrase, war driving. It was used to define Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
Are you still, basically it's a drive-by, someone with a sniffer, RF sniffer goes by your house, picks up your signal and taps into it and starts working it. Is that another way? Does not seem common. So a person from halfway around the globe is not driving by your house. Obviously someone's coming by to do that. Is that another way that it's partly a breach point? And which tends to bring me back to the firewall. What is a firewall?
So a firewall you can look at it as an isolation device between the internet and the rest of your network. So you can look at it as your home router or your Wi-Fi access point, but they all have some level of protection from things on the internet getting to the devices that you have. Depending on the router, the firewall, the configuration, this can have many different meanings or many different levels of protection, but at least there's something. When it comes to Wi-Fi, it is insecure. But again, like you said, the bigger attack vector is what you click on, because then you are going out to the internet, in which case all the firewalls become useless because they're all letting you go out to the internet. There are specialized firewalls that will check what site you are visiting. And if it's got a bad reputation or if it's got reported malware, they will block you. And in fact, our Canadian Internet Registry Authority, CIRA, provides a service like that free of cost. All you have to do is point your domain resolver, which is on your router or your home router or your firewall, to that service, and they will block a lot of those threats for you. So again, these are part of the simple steps that you can take to protect yourself.
Raj, many of our listeners are solopreneurs, and some of them are somewhat sloppy about designing what's their work and what's their play and what's their leisure. What do you recommend so that you are not putting your business materials at risk when you're doing your surfing?
As a general rule, I use separate computers for work and personal work. It's not always practical. It's not always possible. I get it. So what I would say is if you are mixing the two, make sure you keep it reasonable. So if you're accessing secure sites for personal use from a work computer, that's fine. But if you're letting your 5-year-old download games from the internet and play them on your work computer, that is probably not a good idea.
The barn door is open and the horses are gone.
Yep.
So that if you're working from home as a solopreneur,
Mhm.
and you're running off of a network, you have your work box, your work computer, but you could have the 5-year-old or the 18-year-old or spouse. And not that they're going to bad sites, but all of a sudden they trip over something and they accidentally go, ta-da, and they open Pandora's box, or they said yes to the person from Africa. How do you prevent cross-contamination from other machines inside your space, whether it's work or work home?
Getting into slightly more advanced security now for an individual, it's definitely something you should do if you're in that situation. So one is you can enable a personal firewall on your computer. And most work computers, if they've been set up by your company, will have that setting on. So your computer is, even though it's on your home network, it is isolated from the network. Nothing can come in. And then you will have what is likely a VPN or an encrypted connection to your workplace. So all your communication there is encrypted as well. If you don't have those protections and it's not a corporate setup computer and you still want to protect your network, one thing I suggest, and most routers have this setting nowadays, is to turn on guest mode. And what that does is it prevents devices on the same network from seeing each other or sending traffic to each other. So each device almost has an individual connection to the internet. What that does mean, though, in terms of compromises, is that you probably won't be able to use the network printer that you have in your house. So you do give up some ease of use for that protection. So that's why I said it's getting into a little bit of the advanced security. I would still recommend it. And just plug the printer into your computer when you need to use it. It's far more secure anyway than putting a printer on the network.
So what is a VPN and should I have one? And if I should have one, are there only some brands I should have?
So a VPN is a virtual private network. And the biggest use is if you are outside your company network and you want to access resources, computers, shared files that are inside your company's network. That is the typical use for a virtual private network. The virtual private networks to the general public are for purposes that cannot and will not talk about because they allow you to terminate your connection in different countries and pretend that you are in a different country for whatever purposes. On the security side, when you try to track back where an attack is coming from, a lot of times they're using VPNs to mask their real location, and they will use layers of VPNs. So you have a tough time tracking them back to where they're originating from. But that's what VPNs are typically used for in the personal space. So unless you have one of those needs, you don't need a VPN. If you need one for your company, they will provide you one.
That, or you have it on your smart mobile device as you're going from a Wi-Fi node to Wi-Fi node.
You could. If you're connecting to public Wi-Fi, it may be a good idea to use an encrypted connection. And that's where a VPN would come in handy for sure. Yeah.
So your company now focuses on this. So talk to me about that you've developed and how does that work and how do businesses capitalize on it?
Yes. The tool I've developed is the SecureLink security compliance tool. And what it does is it guides you to improving your security. So one step at a time, it'll tell you what's the first thing you need to do, how often you need to do it, and then make you do it. So once you're done with that, you can go upload your documentation on that, whatever policy you have or whatever process you have for doing that. And then it'll remind you either on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis or an annual basis to do whatever you have said you were doing to support that step. As you do that, it will then say, okay, here's the next step. So it takes you one step at a time. So it's very easy to build a culture of security, build a security program, and make yourself more secure. There are a lot of compliance platforms out there, but they all require a certain amount of expertise to get started. So you need to know what cybersecurity is. You need to know what controls are, what policies are, what processes are, what controls you want to adopt based on what security standard you want to adopt. So these are all complex questions. So what my software does or what our software does is focus on what are the basic security steps that you need to do regardless of anything else. And once you have all those steps in place, then it is very easy to layer on a security compliance program, whether it's ISO 27001 or SOC 2 or anything else you want to follow. They all require you to do some basic security hygiene steps, and that's where we start. And then from there, once you have done those and you're in the habit of doing them on a regular basis, and you built up that security muscle, so to speak, then you can get on to the more advanced things you need to do and go all the way to compliance.
So from a budget perspective, how much should a company allot for tapping into the SecureLink tool, as well as keeping up the snuff?
So the SecureLink tool is actually quite reasonably priced and very affordable for small. And depending on the number of employees, it's anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for you to get started on. That's compared to a security consultant who would charge that in a day. Yet you have full sort of level of expertise to build a security program. So where we are trying to focus is to say, you don't need an expensive security consultant. We've distilled all the knowledge and expertise and experience into this tool that you can use at your pace and still build a strong security program.
Excellent. And if they're doing I know it's based on number of seats being computers, right? Or number of endpoint users. Is for antivirus, like I use it antivirus one element, then I do something with malware bytes. Then I rely on a little bit of the Microsoft motherhood piece to keep me safe. What does that look like for an expense per machine? So per month, is that like $50 a machine? Is that like $10 a machine?
So that really depends on what tool you're using, what your subscription to that tool is. Again, all of the tools you mentioned have enterprise programs. So if you're a 1,000-seat user, it's a different cost than if you're an individual user. So a lot of that depends on the company size. From my point of view, or from the security tools point of view, we will recommend you have something like that. But if we can leave it to you to choose which one is the most effective one for you or cost-effective one for you. Microsoft built-in tools are also pretty good these days. So I'm seeing a lot of adoption for those tools, and they come bundled in with the OS or some of the other services that you get from them. So there's a lot of options like that as well if you want to keep your costs low.
Is there a geography you're more comfortable with than the rest? And how do we get a hold of you?
I'm based out of Ottawa, and I can travel. I have consulted and traveled all across North America. So you can get a hold of me online and we can consult online. Or if you're nearabouts, I'm happy to travel and meet you face to face. I love meeting people face to face.
And how do they reach you?
So my website is securelink.com, SecureLink.com. And my email is simply raj@securelink.com. And you can reach me at either of those.
Perfect. I want to say thank you to Raj Thukral, my co-host Wayne Pratt, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. So, you want to know whether your ship is tight and squared away, or you have leaking points or potential for leaking points from your cybersecurity point of view. Reach out to Raj.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVINSIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayneemotive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter U.ca, or his website, motive8u.aca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people: Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert; Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host; Jovan Stryka from ER Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space; then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner; and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer: please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.